So Paul Finebaum is right about one thing. Oh, sorry. Was that blasphemy? to say that in this episode of the Big Ten Huddle presented by FanDuel. Let me explain. This starts right there. Indiana's non-conference schedule is not great, okay? I think even Indiana fans can say that. But here's where Finebaum and really the SEC as a whole completely lose me with this stuff. Indiana should not apologize for their offseason schedule, in my opinion. All right, Finebaum took a shot at the defending national champions this week because Indiana is only ranked number 6 in the preseason poll. He called their non-conference slate a junior high non-conference schedule, while also acknowledging that Indiana's conference schedule is far more difficult. You know, the Big Ten teams, right, that Finebaum does somewhat respect now, which is good for him. And that last part is the entire story to me. The SEC can complain about Indiana's schedule all at once. So go ask Eli Drinkwitz. He's complaining. But the SEC has nobody to blame but itself for choosing a different strategy. You got North Texas, Howard, Western Kentucky for Indiana. No, I'm not going to try to sell you that those games are some brutal September gauntlet. Nobody's trying to sell you that, okay? They're not. Indiana's official schedule has all 3 at home before the Big Ten play begins. And as a college football fan, I would love for those to be different. I would love for Indiana to go up against a Notre Dame or somebody like that in September. But Crooks-Cinetti uses these 3 games as a strategy. It's a part of his developmental process for the team throughout the season, right? So if you do want Indiana to win the national championship, I do say give me these games, right? It is good television. It is good for the, the Notre Dame game would be good television. It would be good for the sport. It would be good for fans in the state of Indiana, but wanting something as a fan and saying it makes strategic sense for Indiana are 2 totally different things. Indiana already plays 9 conference games. Ohio State comes to Bloomington. Indiana goes to Michigan. USC comes to Bloomington. Then Indiana goes across the country to Washington. You also get Nebraska on the road, who could be 5-0 when they play them. We saw how that worked out last time. But still, all right, Finebaum himself conceded that the conference schedule is much harder. So what exactly is Indiana supposed to gain by replacing one of their non-conference games with Notre Dame right now? I'm just using them as an example because obviously that game, I know they wouldn't actually play them this year. But that is the question nobody on the SEC side seems to want to answer. Listen, this is not about being scared to play somebody, and that's what will get posted all over Twitter and X because, people don't have comprehension skills very well. Not everybody, but a lot of people don't. Indiana just went 16-0 and won the national championship. The Big Ten has won 3 straight national championships with 3 different programs: Michigan, Ohio State, and Indiana. And Indiana enters the next season ranked 6th behind 5 teams that do not win the national championship last year. Ohio State is number 1, Oregon is number 2, and then you got the defending champs all the way down there at number 6. Now, there are some legitimate reasons for why you might doubt Indiana a little bit. Okay, I will concede, all right? Indiana lost for Fernando Mendoza. If you're not a Josh Hoover believer, I get that, right? Their roster does have a little bit of turnover in it. Nobody has to automatically rank the defending national champions number 1. I am not in that camp. But that ranking tells Indiana something really important about the incentive structure. The benefit of another difficult game is only theoretical. The punishment for losing one is very real and would be much greater than the punishment of winning, or the benefit of winning one. If Indiana schedules Notre Dame and wins, great. Maybe that people give them credit, or maybe Notre Dame loses 3 games that season and people say, they're not really that hard. Don't believe me? Go look at Texas last season with Ohio State. But if Indiana loses that game by 3, you already know what happens. Indiana was exposed. Crooks-Cinetti's run is over. Last year was just lightning in the bottle. The Big Ten is overrated. Every weakness gets picked apart for 7 straight days. And probably longer than that too, because people can't move on. So why volunteer for that risk before we even know what the future college football playoff is actually going to reward? And this is where Tony Petitti and the Big Ten are being smarter than people want to admit. Definitely smarter than Greg Sankey in the SEC. The Big Ten is currently the only major conference that does not require every team to schedule another Power 4 opponent in the non-conference play. And Petitti was asked about this directly at Big Ten Media Days. We covered it, and his answer basically was we need to clarify the playoff and access before we make the next scheduling decision. And that's exactly what he said in the conference's focus is right now. Seeing clarity around the playoff and access before deciding what comes next. And that makes perfect sense. I mean, that is exactly how you want your leader thinking this through. Is it great for the fans? No. But the postseason format is still being debated right now. Strength of schedule incentives matter. Automatic, access matters. The number of teams matter. Figuring out the rules first matters. Then build your schedule around the rules. That's not cowardice. It's being smart. It's strategy. Now you compare that with the SEC. Starting this year, the SEC moved from 8 conference games to 9. And I actually like that part. As a fan, give me more Georgia, Alabama. Give me more Texas, LSU. Give me more meaningful conference games, because I'm pretty sure it's like Texas A&M has played Georgia at Georgia, I think, once in their time being in the SEC. I think it's the last time they did it was like 2017. That's ridiculous. Yeah, I got to go check that stat. So don't take my word for that. But there's some team like that in there that's like that. But the SEC didn't stop there. SEC teams are also required to play at least one additional non-conference opponent from the ACC, Big Ten, Big 12, or Notre Dame. So in practical terms, the SEC has mandated 10 power level games for everybody. And Greg Sankey publicly championed this structure when the SEC announced it. Sankey argued that adding the 9th conference game and pairing it with the additional power opponent would better prepare SEC teams to compete in the college football playoffs. The format was approved by SEC presidents and chancellors after being recommended by the league's athletic directors. Okay, and then you have Kirby Smart talking about how terrible it is to play in Starkville, which Toledo didn't have a very hard time playing in Starkville, but anyway, that's a different conversation. Then you live with the consequences, because the SEC made that strategic choice while the playoff structure and exactly how strength of schedule will be rewarded are still evolving. Sankey himself previously acknowledged that the CFP has made progress in the strength of schedule evaluations but had not reached perfection. Indiana didn't make the SEC play 9 conference games. Tony Petitti didn't make the SEC require another Power 4 opponent. Kirk Cignetti did not create Georgia's schedule. The SEC chose those things. So Paul Finebaum can get as mad as he wants, but you got to get mad at the SEC, not the team who isn't making the rules be on them. That wouldn't help them. If that produces an advantage, fantastic. Take the advantage. But it produces extra losses and leaves an SEC team sitting there at 9-3 while Big Ten teams get into the playoff with a better record. Do not suddenly tell me the Big Ten cheated the system. You chose the system you wanted, Paul Finebaum. Well, not you, but your conference chose the system you wanted. And there's actually a better angle here that illustrates what I mean about Indiana's early season approach, which, by the way, also ESPN helped choose this system because ESPN wanted more value out of their games. So double whammy there, Paul. But as of recording this right now, FanDuel has Indiana favored by 39.5 points against North Texas. 39.5. And I'll tell you, I do not hate North Texas plus 39.5 here. Not because I think Indiana's bad. That's obviously quite the opposite, okay? I think Indiana can be one of the best teams in the country again. I would probably have them number 1 or number 2 in my AP poll if I was voting. But look at Cignetti's first 2 season openers in Bloomington. In 2024, Indiana beat FIU, Florida International University, 31-7. That's a 24-point win. Pretty good, right? Probably could have been more, but I get it. His first game at Indiana. Last year, Indiana beats Old Dominion 27-14. That's only a 13-point win. Cignetti is 2-0 in Indiana season openers, but neither win came by more than 24 points. So then you're probably thinking, like, well, what happened? Well, the teams got better. That is why I look at these early games almost like a loose college football version of the NFL preseason environment. No, they're not playing their 4th-string quarterback, okay? Not because Cignetti treats it exactly like that and the results don't matter. He absolutely does. But early in the year, you are still learning your roster. You're identifying roles. You're building depth. You're figuring out which combinations work best. You're finding the mistakes before Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Washington that can punish you. Cignetti himself has talked about the preseason process in those exact football terms. Develop players, identify roles, build depth, and create competition as you prepare for the season opener. Could Indiana beat North Texas by 50? Yes, they could probably beat them by 70 if they wanted to. Absolutely. But if I'm starting at 39.5 points, I can see Indiana controlling this game, getting Josh Hoover comfortable, rotating players, trying different combinations, and only winning by like 28 or 31, which is kind of crazy that we're talking about Indiana only winning by 28 or 31. I'm sure I'll get used to it at some point, but it's still kind of crazy. Indiana could look perfectly fine. And North Texas could still cover. That's why the number interests me here. And weirdly enough, it connects directly back to Finebaum. Indiana does not need September style points. Indiana needs September development. The real examination comes inside the Big Ten. The 4 big games, like I mentioned, Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Washington. That's where we find out whether Indiana can defend the national championship. Not whether they beat North Texas by 30 or 50 points. And this is the larger mistake the SEC keeps making in this conversation. They're confusing entertainment with strategy because they know they have to make more money, so they're trying to put more entertainment out on the field because they're not making as much as the Big Ten. Would college football be more entertaining if Indiana played Notre Dame every September? 100%. I would love it. But I would rather watch, but would I rather watch that than Indiana versus Howard? Of course. But Kirk Cignetti's job is not to make the fans happy. I mean, to a certain extent it is. It's not to improve my September's television schedule. His job is to put Indiana in the best position to win another national championship and win the Big Ten. Until the college football playoffs gives teams a clear, dependable reward for taking extra non-conference risk, I cannot blame Indiana for asking, why are we doing somebody else a favor, right? Especially when the Big Ten schedule already proves plenty of opportunities to prove themselves in it. And here's what makes the SEC criticism just so funny to me. For decades, the SEC's argument was that conference strength matters. Every week was a war. The schedule is a gauntlet. Your record needs context because of who you played in the SEC. Fine. All right? And I didn't necessarily disagree with that in every way, but I did think it was a little ridiculous when you're only playing 8 conference games. Now, apply that exact same logic to the Big Ten. Indiana plays 9 games in the conference that has produced the last 3 national champions. Ohio State and Oregon are number 1 and number 2 in the AP poll. Indiana's number 6, and the SEC didn't receive a single first-place vote in the poll. If Finebaum wants to say Indiana's 3 non-conference games are weak, sure. He's not necessarily wrong. But where I disagree with this idea that Indiana should feel obligated to fix it, no. The SEC voluntarily made its schedule and its path harder by not giving their teams better time to develop. The Big Ten is waiting to see how the playoff rewards scheduling before changing the policy, and the Big Ten knows that one of the biggest secrets in college football right now is development. So on the field, the Big Ten, they've won 3 straight national championships, and off the field right now, they've basically won 3 off the field national championships too. I think the Big Ten is playing the right game off the field right now. I think Greg Sankey is scrambling. He's kind of gambling with his own teams right now. I guess give him credit, like he is trying. But if SEC teams start knocking each other out of the playoff position while Big Ten teams are sitting there with cleaner records, do not blame Indiana. Do not blame Kirk Cignetti. Do not blame Tony Petitti. The SEC has to look themselves in the mirror. You built your schedule. Now go survive it. And we built our conference. And our best teams are going to survive it and be on their way to a national championship. If you want more Big Ten football talk analysis, we do basketball here some as well, but obviously with football season coming, got a lot of football content. Please do like and subscribe. Like the video so this algorithm knows to show you more, and subscribe so you can see it more in your feed. And tell me in the comments, should the Big Ten require a Power 4 non-conference game, or should Petitti keep waiting until the playoff finally tells everyone what those games are actually worth? I know my view from a fan standpoint, like the games I want to see, yeah, I'd love it if they did. But from a strategy standpoint, I see what Indiana's doing, and I don't think they're necessarily wrong. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening and watching the Big Ten Huddle. We appreciate it. Have a good one. I'll see you next time.